Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by my co-host from the Midwest Racing Connection, Mr. Dan Plan. Hello, Dan.
Hello again.
Good to have our guest. You probably know him most from Rockford Speedway. We're very glad to have him on here. He is a winner in many ways. Please welcome Jerry Gille. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, guys.
So glad you
Happy to
could
be here.
join us. Want to actually start off real quick because I know you are recuperating. You had a shoulder injury and you had some surgery. If you could share what happened and how's it going?
We were chasing race car parts, of course. It was early on a Saturday morning, so no adult beverages were involved or anything. Chasing race car parts. We were down at Jim Olson's place, and man, I hit about a 2-foot square piece of ice, and before you knew it, I was on my side, and I knew immediately I had done some fairly significant damage. But yeah, so I had tore up the subscapularis, it's called. So the large one, I tore it in 2 places. So yeah, we did some pretty significant damage.
Wow, that
We're
sounds
on the mend,
painful.
hopefully. It hurt.
Yeah.
It really wasn't as bad as you would think before the surgery, but well, I've been paying for it since, so hopefully it gets better soon.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of inflammation going on in there yet too. And as you're doing physical
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah, I'm black and blue from my neck to my elbow, and yeah, it was interesting.
Wow.
So,
You've never
we
had
got
an
lucky.
injury like that in racing, have you?
I have never scrambled my brain. Of course, if you've talked to me at any length of time, you know I've hit my head a few times, but no, I really never been hurt in a race car, thank God. So this was new.
Wow. So does everyone tell you now that you need to be surrounded by a roll cage and wear a helmet?
The wife definitely. She's been super helpful. I'm not allowed to do anything, so yeah, she's been keeping a pretty good eye on me.
Nice. You mentioned at the start that she got you that shirt that you're wearing. I love your
Yes.
shirt.
I'm very proud of my old Dodge. I had a super modified. Actually, I owned one of Bob Iverson's super modifieds from back in the 60s originally. And that was always my go-to project. And it had gotten out of hand and was way more than I was able as far as time. And so I sold it to Chris Radicek and immediately started looking for a stock car and found my old Dodge. It's a 65 Cornet. I found it way up north, Eagle River, and we drug it home and did a few things to it. It's pretty much, I mean, it's not as found, but it's as close as possible. But yeah, I love my old Dodge.
I like it
I have
too.
a deep connection with the old days. I'm one of them groups. I can be in the middle. I race now still, but I've been doing this my whole life, so I can go back into the early Tom Refner years and Dick Trickle. So yeah, I at least have a good connection there.
That's something I've noticed through your social media posts is your dad was involved on Tom's crew. Is that correct?
Yeah, my dad helped Tom. My dad and my mom actually. My mom and dad and Tom and Dee Dee traveled all over when the kids couldn't go. When Barrett and Brian got racing and stuff. My dad and my mom and Tom and Dee Dee, they were the team. They raced all over.
How did that relationship come about? Because it's not like you live real close by to each.
Well, my mom's from originally was born in Rudolph, so
Okay.
I have my grandparents lived in Stevens Point, so we always kind of hung around together, anyways. And of course, Tom ran Madison a lot, or the old Oregon or Capital or whatever you want to call it at the time. And yeah, it just kind of started hanging around, and one thing led to another. And I think my dad helped him for 10, 12 years maybe. So up till about time my brother and I started racing in '85.
Did you ever help out too then in the pits for Tom?
Yeah, my brother and I did pit stops for him a lot of times. Usually in Milwaukee, we helped him, mostly pit stop stuff. I really didn't. My brother and I helped John Knaus and Joe Shear, and we built Jim Sauter's car one year. And so we've done countless other things before I started racing. So
Wow.
yeah, so I've been pretty lucky. just a dumb kid playing around race cars my whole life. And I haven't really grown up, so that's good.
You should never grow up.
No, that's a trap, and I haven't fallen into it yet. I've been dabbling more and more lately. Definitely slowing down. I have no intentions of ever racing full time again, but I still want to go racing a lot. We just haven't been able to recently, but working on trying to get back in the car more and more. And I bought a dirt car, which 30 some years of asphalt racing, that was quite an education. But so yeah, we're still want to go pretty bad.
Nice. How old were you when you actually got behind the wheel for the first time?
I was 20 before I got to race, actually. My parents never really had the money to do anything or, get us, set up in race cars. So it took an awful long time for my brother and I to get started. We actually both started at the same time. And he's, almost 5 years older than I am. So, he was even older yet when he got in the car, but we tried to make up for lost time. I mean, there's some years I ran like 35 nights. So I've raced a lot in the time I've been in a car. So.
Well, and you rattled off a bunch of really big names in racing that you've helped. So that kind of begs the question, did some of those folks kind of give you some advice as you made the transition into a driver yourself?
Yeah, John Canals has been probably the biggest in my life. Me and my brothers too, for the most part. I mean, he was my brother's best man. And, the funny thing is the biggest advice he gave me was don't do it. And I didn't listen to it. And, 30 some years later, he was probably pretty right. But I haven't, I got no regrets. And I've been able to meet some amazing people. I've been all over the country. I got to race it. I've raced at 19 tracks myself, and I've been to probably closer to 40, otherwise. So I've been lucky.
And you've won a lot of races too.
Yeah, I've been, I have a friend of mine, Jim Lauder. He started helping me in 1991. He went to school with Chad Canals and grew up with that bunch. And John had broke up with a car owner in the spring of 91, and Jim was looking for something to do. And he started hanging around me, and gosh, we've been best of friends ever since. And man, he's been quite a help to my career. I mean, we've ate bologna sandwiches going down the highway to winning the Super Late Championship at Madison. Man, that's an honor that a lot of guys will never have. And I'm lucky to be that guy. So pretty fortunate.
Cool.
I know you raced before late model. I think you started hobby stock, sportsman type car, but I first remember you with the old Northern Series. Camaro.
Love that.
So I'm guessing that might have been one of your first years in the late model when the Northern Series had started up.
Yeah, actually, 1989 was my first year in a late model, and it's funny. Renee Fredrickson, for whatever reason, she befriended me, and gosh, she helped me get to Elko, and we had a lot of good help from promoters. Oddly enough, I mean, I had no resume to speak of, but Renee was big. Gosh, I'm missing the promoter's name at Cedar Rapids, but he would help us with a tire or two, and I don't know, we were just really, really lucky, and I got to hang with a lot of cool people, and I learned. Fortunately, I'm kind of a slow learner, but I learned. So
I got to believe part of the attraction to want to help a guy like you, Jerry, is you're very likable. You're a hell of a nice guy. And I think that people like to help people who are good people, and you are that good. You're good people.
Well, thank you. I come from good family. I'm really proud of my mom and dad. My dad was the old tough guy, I mean, he was I guess you'd call him the enforcer, big old tough, 50s, 60s guy, but heart of gold. And he was pretty tough on me. I wasn't, if I come through the field and was a little rough, and even if I won, he'd come out and congratulate you, get his picture taken. But he would chew me for contact, if it wasn't you know, an accident. If it was what he thought was intentional, boy, I would get roughed up a little bit by my dad. So we learned the hard way, and like I said, I'm really fortunate the family I come from.
That says a lot that your dad cared enough about making sure that not only did you develop the skills on the track, but you also developed your character as
Yeah, well,
well.
a lot of it comes from the Refner connection. Tom was, gosh, what an amazing guy, and obviously a hell of a race car driver. And he didn't have very many run-ins. There wasn't many people that disliked him. So my dad was pretty big on that. I mean, you tried to win and lose with respect. And I got a lot of opportunity to lose for a long time there. So I got that down pretty quickly. But he was pretty sure about teaching you how to win right too. So
That
some of
was
my biggest moments was my dad coming to Victory Lane, getting his picture taken. I value those pictures more than anything you can imagine.
one of the first times I met Tom and Dee Dee, where it was when Tom was inducted into the Elko Hall of Fame several years back, and I asked Dee Dee what it was like, being married to superstar driver the year he won 67 features, and she said he's always just been my husband, and that's just the way
He
they
is
were.
that guy.
Yeah,
I mean, whether he's at the shop or Victory Lane or whether they're struggling, he was always just Tom. I mean, just a great family. I really enjoyed the whole group, and gosh, what a great group to be associated with, even at a little.
Yeah, you were really blessed to be able to have
Yeah,
that whole group that you rattled off, that you were able to grow up racing around. I mean,
yeah,
wow, what an
really,
education.
really. I really never really had a lot of expectations to go racing because we didn't have any money to speak of. So it started out, like everybody else, we had the old enduro card thing. We got talked into doing that, and gosh, I had a little car left over, so we ended up going to short track in 1984, and I had been helping Joe, and had this poor old Oldsmobile that was just a pile of junk. And it was funny. I remember Joe saying, he goes, "Well, there's not much I can do to help you with the car, but I can tell you how to get in the corner." So that was cool. I was able to do that. So yeah, I've been fortunate to have some great teachers.
What was the best piece of advice you ever got from any of those guys, and who was it that gave it to you?
Probably Canals. John was another guy. He was very likable, very quiet, very reserved guy. Um, he was very shy, and but he was fierce behind the wheel. And I always tried to just emulate the guys. I really never got any like ground pounding, information, but just tried to emulate the guys I hung around with. I was very fortunate hanging around a lot of neat guys, so I was pretty lucky.
That's cool.
it was something I just had to look up quick here because I know there's guys that have gone on championship tears at Rockford. Like, no,
Yeah,
John had a bunch in a row. Well, you got three to your name. It looks like two in a row,
yeah.
and then another one. But I mean, Joe Shear back in the day, Knaus, Wilberg, Bilderback, just championship at what? How did they manage to win that many in a row, and then to have that many people do it too is just kind of astonishing.
Well, if you look at my record, I've got like 7 or 8 second place finishes too. So one I only missed by 1 point, one I missed by 9 points. So we could have very easily rolled off 7 or 8 too there. I mean, um, Rockford's just one of them places. Once you get it, I don't want to say get it down, but once you get your stuff together, there's a certain way to get around that place. Look at Steve Carlson. I mean, Steve was, he was unbelievable at Rockford.
Yeah.
The knock on Rockford is tearing equipment up. I mean, they tear up some stuff. Geez, I ran 4 or 5 years there with barely changing a rub rail. When we race there weekly, yeah, there's a little contact, but it's incidental. It's door to door. It used to be. Now it's gotten a little worse here recently. But um, you know, there wasn't like that. And the guys you'd get on a run, and boy, I mean, our car, like hot lap maybe 6 laps every week and go out and go racing, I mean, just get on a roll.
Yeah, I always maintained that Rockford gets a bad rap for that because it's like you said, the weekly show isn't like that, and short tracks, it's people that have never raced there before, and they're probably trying harder than they normally would, and that's why they wreck.
I've been guilty of saying that we don't always throw the first punch. Now, we're not afraid to throw them back. Don't get me wrong. Every one of us have raced, through nights like that. But normally the guys that race our weekly we're a pretty good group of guys. We're all fairly tight group. I mean, there's 4 or 5 of us that even when we go to a different racetrack, just to watch, we kind of end up gravitating to each other. I mean, it's really a neat place.
Jerry, talk just a little bit kind of about the progression of your career. I mean, you said basically you didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, started with an enduro car. When was the moment when you knew I can do this and I'm pretty damn good? Let's go.
God, I was a long ways into it. Talk about hard-headed. Do you think I would have gave up earlier? I got really lucky. Rockford was going through a rough time. Everybody was on that recapped Towel City tire, and it was pretty tough to pass. And I had a pretty old car to start the year with, an 89. And I bought it on a $350 loan on my credit card. And I only got to run it like 4 or 5 nights. And a gentleman, Gary Bagwell, who longtime family friend, just an awesome guy. He called me on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and told me I was going to kill myself in this poor old piece of junk. And I had to tell him, I had everything I own in it. So he gave me just not quite enough, but just about enough money to buy a car from a guy that was going through a divorce. Boy, I had to scramble and beg and borrow and sell some things to buy this other car. And we actually took the body off my car, put it on this car, so I didn't have to worry about lettering or anything. And we went racing with that thing. And like the 6th week out in my late model total, I won the feature. And what an amazing, that was an amazing feeling. Because you remember I started in 85. So this was, we're working on my 5th year. And I finally felt like, hey, like the light went on. I'm like, hey, I might be able to do this. So it took a while, but finally we started getting our stuff together.
That's really cool that somebody stepped up like that to help you get there. And again, Jerry, I think that says a lot about you as a person, because people don't generally just hand out money like that for sponsorship and approach people. They got to like you. So there's definitely a likability factor about you, Jerry.
Well, thanks again. But funny story about Gary. Gary and his wife, Barb, were just great people. They were best friends with John Canal. So I kind of, it was all in that same group. But it's funny. I always say every Friday, Gary would call me at work about meeting him for dinner on Friday night. And I swear that's so he knew we at least got one good meal in that week, because he always bought dinner on Friday nights. And we'd sit and have dinner and drink beer and talk about the week. And he was always telling me to try to mix my lifestyle, because all I did was race, and it didn't really work. But I'm always thankful for that one good meal out of the week. So, but that was always the joke. But man, he was big in my early part of my racing. He really he helped me a lot.
Where did you meet your wife?
Blind date in a bowling alley.
Really?
Yeah, of all things. Oddly enough, yeah. I was putting a full court press on another girl, and she told me she had a girl I needed to meet, and it turned out to be my wife.
Wow.
So
how long after that did you get married?
It was a fairly good while. Oddly enough, she paid for her engagement ring, because I was building my first race car. And So I did make payments. We got it paid off. But yeah, she helped buy her engagement ring so we could go racing. So she's been
God
involved since
bless.
day one.
That's
Oh yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So I can't take full blame for everything we've done. She's been more than supportive.
That's
So,
incredible.
Hey,
yeah.
honey, can you go pick out the ring? I got to buy tires this week.
Yeah. No, I did. She did actually pick it out, but no, we went together and got it. But yeah, it's quite an odd story. So,
That's cool.
so
How
she
long
can
have you
take some
guys
of the
been
blame.
married?
37 years, I believe it is now.
Wow.
So we were married 15 before we had kids, and we were blessed with a pair of identical twin boys, and they have zero interest in race cars. Oddly enough, my son Matt just checked his oil by himself the first time here the other day. So, and they're going to be 23. So
Wow.
at least they were smarter than their dad.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
What would you call your biggest win of your career?
Oh, boy, that's easy. I got to win the Labor Day 100 in 1998 at Madison. Started like sixth row, and I passed Steve Carlson, Brian Hoppy, Travis Quapple, John Knaus, and got the lead. And caution came out with like 10 to go, and it come down to John and I for the win. And I was actually in John's car, in a car John had built. When I quit Rockford, I bought my car from John. And yeah, we actually, the two of us stretched out the first and second and got away for the win. And that was by far the greatest day of my racing career. So single day, I should say.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Like storybook, I mean, for me to race John for the win was just neater than heck. So
Do you still talk with him a lot?
John doesn't go to the racetrack very often, so I don't get to see him as much as we'd like to, but still very good friends. He was like a big brother to me, and I'll cherish that forever.
For sure. You've mentioned 19 racetracks, won at 16 of them. What tracks have you not been to that you want to race at?
I would die to go to Golden Sands. I never made Golden Sands. I've been to Marshfield. I've never been to Golden Sands, and I've never been to State Park. Never had a lot of interest in State Park. That just doesn't do it for me. And never had any interest in going to Slant.
Really?
No. We get that from Refner. Refner didn't care for the place, and I was never really thrilled with it anyways. And we had made a deal, must have been about 98. Brad Mueller was going to get us some shocks and springs, and he was going to help us go fast. And I don't remember what happened. I don't know if we tore the car up or what happened, but we just never made it. And it is what it is. I don't miss it. I still go there when I can, but it just hasn't been on my bucket list.
What is there a track that is then other than Golden Sands? I mean, is there something outside of the Midwest that you would love to go run?
Gosh, not really. I mean, I've been pretty much. I mean, I've been to Cedar Rapids. Got to race at the Milwaukee Mile. We went down to St. Louis. I got to run Gateway. I've ran at what is the Norway? We had quick time at Norway in a super late. Thankfully I got to run Kaukauna. I love that place. I was at Elko Raceway Park, so I've been pretty fortunate. There ain't too many I would want to go to.
Did you get to run a couple of ASA races too?
Yeah, that's a sore subject.
Well, did you get to go to the?
Well, let's talk about it then.
Okay, yeah, let's open that wound.
Minnesota State Fair with that car, or no?
No, we went to Cedar Rapids first. Oddly enough, we got the car from the Woods, from Jerry Woods' bunch, and we were so dumb. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We were trying to race for the championship at Madison. I was already writing questionable checks. I wouldn't say bad, but very questionable checks. And then we decided to do the ASA car. And we went to Cedar Rapids and got through tech, which was an ordeal because we didn't know. And I had never been to one, with our own stuff. I'd worked a bunch of them and I knew all the Rex Robbins family and all that. And we got through tech and all that, but they wouldn't let us go on the racetrack because I didn't have tail lights stickers on the car. So we missed the first hot lap session. So we kind of got stuck putting tires on the car right away, new tires. And Tim Sauter was whipping everybody's butt at that time in that Pinsono's car.
Oh.
And I had talked to Tim quite a bit, and he told me to come out and follow him. And I'd been to Cedar Rapids obviously a couple times, so really wasn't too worried about the racetrack. But like 6 lap in, we were really hauling mail. We were running really, really well. And about lap 13 on what would be a new car to us, I got off turn 2, and the thing turned a little sideways, and of all things, it got upside down. So the Howe cars have their panhard bar behind the rear axle, and those cars were narrow and tall. Well, the panhard bar collapsed, and it sucked the right rear tire in, and it high-sided the car, and it tipped over and blew all the windows out. Well, of course, the crew was in the infield, and my guys are probably 150 feet from me, and all I could say was I keyed the radio, and I go, "Do you believe that?" There was some blue language in there, but I was like, I could not believe. Well, the first guy to the car was one of the officials, and that's about the time the NASCAR cars were blowing over, from the aerodynamics. That was the first thing out of the guy's mouth. That thing blew over, he says. We're doing like 75 miles an hour. It did not blow over, but so yeah, that was that hurt. So we got the car all thrown in the trailer and piled on top, and I never will forget the next race, I believe it was Dover for the ASA cars. And one of the officials come down and asked me about interest in going to Dover. They were offering body panels and tires and, all kinds of stuff for us to go. I mean, we're talking a lot of stuff. And I had to tell the guy, I said, I don't believe I need to be going 150 miles an hour when I just flipped over going 50 miles an hour, and I don't know why. So we skipped over. In the meantime, we were racing our super late, and trying to win that championship. And I was so far behind on my tire bill, it was pretty stupid. So we pieced the car together, and we made a lacrosse ASA race. And same thing, man, I spun coming off turn 4 and got hit in hot laps and knocked the nose off the car. We pieced it all back together again, and ended up breaking the engine in the feature, and I was done. That was the end of that. We didn't go any more than ASA races. That was on the V6 thing, and then them things had carbon fiber drive shafts, and they were just out of control, and we didn't belong to be doing it anyway. So it's kind of a sore subject, but we did.
I
get one more thing. I did that somebody else hasn't. So at least I have it on my resume.
I actually appreciate your humility that you bring to the table about that too. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't be that humble about it all.
Oh, so neat. I was so sad to hear the passing of Doug Smokestead here. What was it, Monday or whatever? And Doug and my dad met in I guess you'd call it a fist fight. Back in the 60s. And, old Doug's big old man, and so is my dad. But the funniest thing about our last start in that ASA car is we started next to Mike Eddy, and Doug was the crew chief on that car. And it was just a kind of a neat moment for me. So, yeah, I've been really, really lucky. I keep saying that. I'm very fortunate, in a lot of ways. So
good people find good luck, Jerry.
I wish I'd find it toy in my wallet. That'd be good.
Well, you and everybody else, yeah. So
well, we go back to race cars. That isn't the best thing,
right?
Another funny story. Just quick. Our championship win, or that we won in '99 with that super late. I spent $10,000 from January 1st to January 1st. That's all we spent on that super late. I mean, we were nickel and diming. My buddy Jimmy, like I said, we were writing questionable checks off his mother's checkbook for tires. I mean, it was not good. But we'll go back to the Woods bunch. John Woods was the tire guy at the time, and it turned out he ended up being my best sponsor of the year. We were like 4 or 5 weeks from the end of the year, and we were into him pretty deep. I mean, I'm not proud of how much I owed him, but he told me if I was to sneak that championship out, he would tear up that tire bill, and I'll be damned if he didn't tear up that tire bill. So it turned out to be my biggest sponsor of the year, so that was big. So,
wow, that is
yeah.
awesome.
Maybe he thought he wasn't going to get his money anyways. I don't know. It worked out for the best.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, like I said, my life's kind of intermingled with pretty neat things I've been lucky to be with. So, pretty awesome.
Wow. Jerry, what's the one story when you think about it, it makes you blow your drink out of your nose laughing?
Oh, gosh, I don't even know. There's so many. So I took my hobby stock Roadrunner, whatever you want to call it, to lacrosse for Oktoberfest, 1985. I'd ridden, I only got one summer in a race car. So we get up there, and my brother's car was too short. They wouldn't let him run. So I had this big old 4,500 pound, big old Caprice, just a boat. And we weren't terribly fast, but I was hanging on, sort of. But got to hot lapping, and Glenn Bass was kind of the big shot there in the street stocks, I guess you call them at the time. And I remember Glenn was on, I don't know if he was on the inside or the outside of me, hot lapping, and he kept going in farther than I was. And I'll be damned if that's going to happen. I'm still young enough. I'm brave. We're going to go in there. So it was like that for 2 or 3 laps in a row. And finally, I'm down far enough. I thought, man, I think I can go all the way around the corner wide open. Never have to lift. And the last thing I remember seeing is my dad and Tom Ruffner standing at the inside wall there. And my dad and Tom both walking away, shaking their head as I went by wide open. And I never lifted. I ran that place for 15 laps wide open because I just didn't have a very good race car. So, but I won. So,
wow.
So actually won. Let me fix that. Glenn Bass actually won, but got DQ'd. So he still gets credit, but I have the trophy and I got the money. So yeah, I won the street stock race at Oktoberfest in 1985. So
that's
I will never forget Ruffin walking away, shaking his head, and him laughing that you didn't even lift, did you? Nope, didn't have to. So yeah.
Do you still talk to Tom Ruffner much?
Yes, quite often. My mom is still very close with them. Unfortunately, my dad passed away 5 or 6 years ago, and but mom still talks to Tom and Dee Dee an awful lot. So, and I do every chance I get. So,
are you thinking you're going to eventually end up with a vintage car?
I actually, that's another sore subject around the house.
I'm really good at finding sore subjects.
Yeah,
apparently,
here this fall, I was at the Enduro at Rockford, and I got to playing around with the jam truck. But I was at the Enduro on Sunday morning, and I've been kind of chasing this gentleman around here north of Rockford, and about buying his old race car. It's been sitting for 30 some years, and I'd be darned if he didn't say, well, if there was somebody I'd sell it to, it'd be you. And we made a deal, and I went and bought it. I haven't got it home yet, but I did buy it's I don't even know what vintage it is, probably a 1980-ish late model that we'll eventually try to clean it up and make something out of it. And that'll be my next career. Is I'll be a old retired vintage racer. Hopefully, that's my goal.
I love that. I love that. Are you hoping to get back behind the wheel though at Rockford before they shut down at the end of the season? Is that something realistic with your shoulder?
It is in my mind. The doctor isn't. I don't think he's 100% interested, but it's really not his call at this point. I imagine it won't be until July, August, but yeah, I'll at least go down and make a couple laps. I'll at least qualify, or I'll do something. I just can't let it close without being in the record books one more time. Yeah. I said I want one more summer in the sun, hopefully. So, but we still got other plans. I mean, I don't intend to fully retire for a while. Like I said, I have the dirt car. it's in a million pieces. We just haven't had a chance to get it together, but we'll get some stuff together and get going.
I think in one of our previous conversations several years ago, I think you mentioned Dan Shabrowski used to give you money when he would come down
Yes.
there. How did
Yeah.
that ever come about? I got my
Um,
Shabrowski shrine over here. I had to point that out.
Sure. Well, back to Doug Smokestead was with them guys quite a bit.
Yeah.
And they come to short track, and I was probably, well, it would have been the year they took the back end off the car. I don't even know what year that was. Probably, around 71, 72, whatever it was. I don't remember. And Dan had given me a quarter to cheer for him because he needed one fan in the stands, when he was here. So yeah, it was just kind of a running joke. And then we started helping George a little bit. We did a pit stop contest at short track and won with George Jabrowski. So kind of always been, I wouldn't say intermingled, but always kind of been around that group. So really fortunate. I have a lot of great friends in the Minnesota area, and I'm always been thankful for that.
To steal one of Jacqueline's lines, relationship building goes a long way in the sport.
Oh boy, you ain't kidding. And I've been really lucky, like I said. And it comes to meeting good people too. I mean, every sport has its bad apples, and obviously racing does too. But man, in our Midwest short track stuff, there aren't many. I mean, we're pretty blessed with a group that we got to play with. So
I would agree with that. But I'm also going to say it for a third time, Jerry. Good people attract good people. And that is a fact.
Like I said, I had my dad standing over me. I couldn't afford to be anything but. We go back to our years going lacrosse and the Northern Series. Man, we had so much fun. I'd have 8-10 weeks on tires, and I'd still be going to them dumb races. I didn't belong there, but man, it was experience, and I was able to make laps, and we just had a really great time. I mean, that's how I met Kevin. For the most part, I guess I did meet him at the Dells a little, but once we got to compete against him, man, what a neat deal to meet Kevin Ullman and Toby. I've been friends with them guys now for close to 30 years. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
Well, and I know you got a big fan in Chris Jepson too. She is a huge super Jerry Gille.
Chris and my wife are very good friends, and we've spent some time at her camper. So yeah, just truly enjoyed all my. I don't have very many bad memories of racing. Yeah, obviously a few, but there's always enough good to overcome that bad. So
absolutely,
and they make great stories.
You should write a book, Jerry.
I've been told that, but
yeah,
I don't know how I'd even start. But we talk some of the old hauler stories. Kevin had that old cube van for a million years. I did too. Mine had 350,000 miles on it. So we have as many good hauler stories as we do race car stories. So
oh my gosh,
it's hilarious.
I can see the title of the book already. It'd just be JFG.
I've been having to say that stands for Fitzgerald. We had to clean it up for the younger kids. So yeah, it's a Jerry Fitzgerald.
Fun guy.
Jerry Fun Guy. Guiley. Yeah.
We try to have fun. I mean, I've been lucky to see the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. I mean, but there's always next week. We've been lucky to. My buddy Jimmy, like I said, we raced together forever, and he always drove it in my head not to race with that wallet between my throttle and my foot. So whether we had, I don't care if we were leading a heat race, you race that thing like it was the last lap of that race car. And that's how I've always tried to race. Obviously, we tempered that a little bit through the years, but I've always tried to be the fastest guy every time I get on a racetrack. So,
have you done any mentoring of other young drivers that are coming up, or have you had any kind of chats with any of the new guys as they were getting started throughout your career?
I have a few. Unfortunately, I'm still overly competitive myself. It doesn't always show. I mean, but I'm pretty intense. But I would love to do like the driving coach thing. I think that would be. I'm not. I'm a. I'm not much of a chassis guy. I do know odds and ends, and I can get myself out of trouble. But that's always been on Jimmy. But I'd like to think I'm capable of information. Funny, when Ty was still in college, I would get a text message from him at 2 a.m. I remember that one of the best ones was the first time they were going to Kaukauna, and he sent me a text message. Like I said, it was probably 2 a.m. Hey, I've never been there. What should I expect? And obviously he got that down on his own, but I'd like to think I was able to give him a couple pointers. But
Heck yeah.
yeah, it's kind of neat, And then, like I said, I always kind of thought about that, but there's not a lot of call for old guys with big attitudes, or know-it-all attitude. I don't know how you put it, but I don't know. It didn't seem like there's been much call for it. But that would be neat.
I don't think you're a know-it-all at all. I think you're very approachable.
I try to be. We try to help. Anytime anything's been asked,
Mm-hmm.
either if I can't give you the answer, I'll try to find it for you, one way or another. But yeah, we've always been try to be that way.
Yeah. I see a lot of trophies behind you, and I'm sure that that's just a little smattering of how many you have. What was the coolest? I'm sure. What's the coolest trophy that you ever received?
Oddly enough, probably still that lacrosse one. The Oktoberfest trophy was really neat back then. But probably they call him a Winston Eagle. And it's the same trophy actually went to Terry Labonte that weekend at Atlanta that I won mine. So I always thought that was pretty cool. Rockford used to give out the Winston Eagle from NASCAR. That was pretty big, but I don't care if it's a trophy dash from Jefferson or the slow heat at the Dells. Trophies are trophies.
Yep.
They're all worth about the same, and I still got my picture taken, so that's cool.
Well, I hope you write the book someday, because I think it would be a damn good read.
Gosh, I don't even know where you'd start. Oh my God, I've got so many
At the beginning, Jerry.
I have
That's where
so
you start.
many stories. Gosh, we were so lucky. Like I said, growing up with canals, we traveled all over. We ran Cayuga, Canada, to Lonesome Pine, Virginia, to, God, we ran the Atlanta Super Speedway. We were in Michigan. So I got to do all that with canals and Shear, and we went to Winchester and Salem, and got to do all that before I even got in a race car. So I got some pretty neat experience before I even was able to get into a car. So it was kind of good starting late. I didn't start at 12 like some of these other kids. So it was a little farther along.
Give us your best traveling story with those bunch.
Oh boy. Probably would be Atlanta. We went down with John, would have been the spring of 82. Went to Atlanta Motor Speedway and broke a right rear hub at somewhere close to between 160 and 170 miles an hour. John wrecked going into turn one, and the car just disintegrated all the way down through 1 and 2, halfway down the back straightaway. This thing is still throwing parts. They shut off hot laps just for pickup truck loads of parts to bring us. And we got everything loaded up, and we were ready to go home. And Jerry Churchill offered us his ARCA car to qualify to keep points. So we jumped in that, and John qualified the ARCA car. And then we made the trip home. And we made it to just south, I think it was, of Nashville, and blew the engine in the hauler.
Oh.
Yeah. So got the whole rig pulled into this poor old record business there in Murfreesboro, I believe it was. And Houston's record service, funny, I still remember this to this day. They were going to change engines in the truck for us. Well, they got to be busy, and they couldn't do it. So it was myself, Tim Rose, longtime friend of mine and co-worker, and myself. We ended up pulling the motor and swapping the engines ourselves in this guy's yard. Got it running. We took off from there. We had stripped the race car waiting for him to change engine, because we were going to stop at Ray Dillon's place and pick up the old 81 Camaro Dillon fifth coil car that Mark Martin raced. We were going to rent that car. So we got our car stripped apart, got the engine changed in the truck, and we were driving about an hour shift is all we could go. And we made it to North Liberty, Indiana, took our junk frame off our trailer, put their race car on our trailer, and headed back to Rockford. We had to get that thing painted and lettered and switched over to run Milwaukee the next Thursday. So we made it. God only knows how, but we made it. So
Wow.
that was kind of one of our wilder stories, as far as before I started racing. But yeah, I've got some pretty good experience.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't usually happen in the to be able to pull it all off, too.
Yeah. Kids nowadays, they don't really understand all that, and we literally race 3 nights a week and sometimes 4. And we'd run, we were in Toledo, Ohio on Saturday night and run Kaukauna on Sunday, or Berlin, Michigan on Saturday night and hit Kaukauna on Sunday. We traveled so much back then that it was just a different lifestyle than what the kids are used to nowadays. They complain if they got to run every week anymore. So I'm guilty of that too. So just, but yeah, it was a different time. Boy, we had some great experiences. So some I can share, some I can't, but never really got in trouble. We just always kind of was on the edge of trouble and had fun. And I got to remember, I was just a kid, so I was 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
Ran pretty hard. Thank God my mother doesn't know most of the stories. She's heard a lot of them now, but statute of limitations is over. So
I was going to say, I think most mothers know the truth. They just kind of turn a blind eye because they didn't want to deal with it head on.
Thank God she has. So, yeah.
That is good stuff. Well, Jerry, we are so thrilled that you were able to take some time to join us on the Race and Nuggets podcast. You are definitely one of the most colorful characters in racing. And I hope you get that shoulder hooked up, fixed up good. And I want to see you.
It is moving
back
right
on
now.
the track.
We're making it. So hoping to be at the Joe Shear Classic on Sunday. I'm not allowed to drive yet, so I gotta find me a ride. But we'll be there, sling on, hopefully, and we'll see everybody. That's the plan.
Awesome. And this episode will air on next Tuesday. So it'll drop Tuesday, May 9th.
Awesome.
So
thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed it.
We really enjoyed having you on, and I have a feeling we could have got even more stories out of you yet too. There's a lot of layers to you, Jerry.
I don't want to admit how many years of racing stories I have. So yeah, I have a lot. I tend to draw a crowd after the races. I always think it's because of my personality, but it's just the dumb stories usually. So dumb stories and cheap beer.
When you're talking about racing more than one night a week, I think I first noticed it when somebody posted Trickle's 67 win year record. And then I think it's in Gruba's book on the 67 wins that Tom and Dick both had. And racing the Minnesota State Fair on a Sunday afternoon and then going back to Golden Sands for a Sunday night show. And it's like, the interstate wasn't done back then. It's like, how did they race a half mile and a third mile in the same day?
Well, there really wasn't many changes made into the cars. I mean, it wasn't as specialty as it is nowadays. Everybody kind of made their car work as good as they could, and that's what you had. So, I remember going to a racetrack and we may not even change tires, change gear, put on the side of the racetrack and back at it. Like I said, we did the same thing. We ran Golden Sands one Sunday morning or, early day and made it to Shearville, Indiana for Sunday evening.
Yeah. I think Tom, in one of his stories, he said they ran I-70 Saturday night, stopped in at Columbus Sunday afternoon, and then ran Golden Sands Sunday night before they went home. Jeez.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when you think about it. I think we put almost 40,000 miles on a cube van one summer. Just one summer. Yeah. And we all worked regular jobs. Well, I went to school, but we all worked regular jobs. So
You know,
yeah, it was dedication.
Jerry, thank you again for joining us. You have
Thank
been
you
a
so much.
delight. Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks so much.
Have a good one.